Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pitch Please. As you already probably know, if you're rejoining us, I'm Alex.
And I'm Troy, and we're both filmmakers and screenwriters, and we like to talk about movies, good, bad, mediocre, and we like to talk about the positives and make some constructive remarks about things that are problematic, and then we tell you what we would do to fix them.
Yeah, and then in the end, we'll give a pitch of either a remake of the movie if we didn't like it, or a pitch of a sequel that we want to see if we did like it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, let's dive right into it in another episode of Pitch Please.
This week we are doing the Tomorrow War, and here's the movie stats and info. The Tomorrow War is produced by Jules Daly, David Ellison, Dan Goldberg, David Goyer, Don Granger, and Adam Kolbrenner. That's a lot of producers.
A lot of producers, yeah.
Directed by Chris McKay, screenplay written by Zach Dean, cinematography by Larry Fawn, edited by Roger Barton and Garrett Elkins. The production design by Peter Wenham, and it starred Chris Pratt, Ivan I always screw her name up. Strahovski, maybe? Ivan Strahovski. She's awesome, but I can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons and Betty Gilpin. Budget on this is about $200 million.
Big boy movie.
It's
It's a big boy movie,
It
right?
came to play. And it was released September 3rd at 2021. And it was a Prime Video movie, so there is actually no domestic gross. And then you said that they punched it out to China and made about worldwide is $14.4 million.
Yeah, something like that.
This is a true original script and movie. So
Yeah, something interesting to note, especially for us, is that there's only one screenwriter on this movie, and in today's movie world, that is a rarity.
oh my goodness, it is so rare, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And, you know.
You love it. You love to see it. We don't always have to have 5 people writing a script. So.
Yeah.
And another thing that's also another rarity is this is not based on anything that we could find.
No.
Which again is a really, really cool thing.
It's not an existing IP. So one writer, original, IP, and what a great way to go. That's the way movies should be made.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not all movies, but that's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Why don't you give us the synopsis of the movie?
I will do just that. So this personally is one of my new favorite sci-fi films. Like, this movie's awesome. If you haven't seen it, again, go check it out. It is on Prime Video. It's really, really worth the watch. It's a very well done movie. So in December of 2022, biology teacher and former Special Forces Dan Forrester, played by Chris Pratt, faces disappointment after failing to secure a prestigious job. During a Christmas party, these soldiers from the year 2051 arrive to warn humanity about an alien threat, the White Spikes, who are on the brink of exterminating mankind. A worldwide draft follows, with Dan being drafted into the military and learning about the devastating nature of this war. And alongside his fellow draftees, Dan faces intense battles against the alien species in the future, where survival is very uncertain. Dan's journey leads him to work with his grown daughter, Murray, played by Yvonne, to capture a female white spike in hopes of finding a way to kill all the white spikes. After facing numerous battles, they discover that the white spikes were originally dormant and thawed out due to global warming, releasing from beneath the ice caps. And so Dan, with the help of his team, ventures into Russia to destroy this alien ship that is housed with the dormant white spikes. They inject the creatures with a toxin, killing those awakened and causing a massive battle. And after a final confrontation, Dan and his father manage to kill the last remaining female white spike and preventing the future war from happening.
And altering the future, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So this movie is a lot of fun. On Rotten Tomatoes, and maybe we'll start throwing out the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
On Rotten Tomatoes, it fared okay,
Yeah.
and which surprised me. I thought that it was a really well done, well executed sci-fi action movie for sure.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. It has some issues that we'll discuss in here as well. But there's a lot going on in this movie, a lot of good things and some good themes and callbacks and such.
Yeah, so right off the bat, something that for me was really, really interesting was the opening hook. So if you haven't seen the movie again, it starts off with Chris Pratt kind of appears out of thin air. He's got a gun, and all of a sudden he looks down and he's falling like hundreds of feet above the skyline of what we later find out is Miami. And the whole city's burning, and he's falling out of the sky with like hundreds of other people, and they're just falling. People are smashing into buildings and stuff, and he happens to land in like this pool. And it cuts to 2022. Like, and it says 28 years earlier. And to me, that is like such a great way to just get you going. What is happening?
Yeah.
What did I just witness? Like, where's this going? And yeah, I really, really enjoyed that hook. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, the hook is great, and the hooks are so important in storytelling, well, at least for filmmaking, because in the beginning of your story, you have to have life as normal. What is the normal life for your characters? And it doesn't mean that they have a normal life, just means this is their daily routine. And that can be such a slow start.
yeah.
And so normally what happens is you get in a good movie like this, you'll get an opening hook that will grab your attention, grab your excitement, and go, oh, wow, this is crazy. What just happened? And then it does the life as normal, which makes it a little bit more palatable, right?
Yeah.
Life is normal for him is he's trying to get a job, and he's at his birthday party for his
Christmas
daughter.
party.
Christmas party.
Christmas party,
He's
yeah.
trying to get a job, and he's at a Christmas party and just dealing with family, learning about, family dynamics and friend dynamics and things like that, which is a fine way to start, but the hook just is a great taste of what's to come, and so we really appreciate good hooks. Those are not really nice.
Yeah.
He did do a theme stated early on where he says that to his daughter, to be the best, if you want to be the best, you have to be willing to do what nobody else is willing to do. And then he says, I am meant to do something special with my life. So that's the early on, the theme stated. And then that does call back later on in the movie, is that he does something that, nobody else is willing to do. So it's sort of like a growth component. The movie is, his story arc is that he starts off as a guy who is a high school science teacher, which I have been for 5 years.
High school biology with
High
you
school
were involved.
biology. I was a high school biology teacher, and he's feeling as if is this my story? I don't know. He's feeling.
I hope not.
No, it's not. He's feeling as if his life is really going nowhere, and he wants to move up in the world. And then in the end, the callback is that he actually does, save the world, so to speak. So which is fine in this movie. I think that was actually great.
Yeah. Yeah, so going back to kind of the beginning, just in that Life is Normal, I felt like they did a really great job of giving some exposition about who he is. He's on this phone call going for a job interview, and in that phone call, we learn that he's a scientist. He's been a soldier in special forces. And then afterwards, shortly after this phone call, we learn that he was abandoned by his dad as well and stuff like that. And so again, it's just all these little tidbits that kind of really show you who he is as a person, as a character. And I thought that it did a really, really good job of just showing that in a small little way, in a quick, again, snippet way, and then get to the action and just like the plot of the film without spending too much time on it. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, they didn't belabor it, and it makes sense that he would talk about who he is on a job interview. So I think in terms of exposition, getting out exposition, I thought that was a good choice, and I think it worked out well. It wasn't like, so honey, how was your day as a biology teacher at the local high school? It's like, oh gosh, that's just
Did you
horrifying.
tell them about your deployments back in the day when you were in special forces?
Yeah, did you talk about special forces at class today? No, honey, I didn't. No, that would have been terrible. So
That would have been a really
So I think a job interview is actually a fine way to get out some of that exposition. And then about 7 minutes in to the movie, they don't spend a lot of time in Life is Normal. About 7 minutes into the movie, people show up from the future saying there is a war in the future. Human existence is, is gonna probably end if they don't get help from people in the present.
Yeah.
So it's very intense, you know, and we got this very strong start off. And turns out leaps forward a year. Turns out, and so they're going to take these just normal people and send them as soldiers into the future for a week
To fight.
and the survival rate is 20%. So the stakes, I think, are really developed well in this movie in terms of the stakes are really high. You know, it's you might get conscripted to go. You're probably gonna die.
Yeah, odds are if you are conscripted, you're probably not going to make it back.
And then the whole idea is you got to save humankind, and so I really appreciate the stakes in this is pretty good.
No, I appreciate that too. However, one of my first constructives kind of comes up with this whole introduction to fighting in the future is that from what I understood in the movie, it didn't sound like they were trying to prepare for when the white spikes appeared in Earth. It's like they're sending people forward in time to fight an enemy that's already there and almost won. And instead, I feel like they should be like trying to figure out, okay, where did they come in? Where did it start? How do we kill these things? And like preparing.
Done some research.
Right, done some research, and then just like, okay, we know to expect them on this date. They're gonna come from this area. Let's just be ready for when they come. Try to help out the future a little bit, but like to me, and maybe they were, preparing for the future attacks and stuff like that, and we just didn't hear about it. But for me, that was something that kind of got a little strange because I didn't feel like it was a pressing matter. And again, the movie's got to happen, so they need to go fight in the future and stuff like that. But logically speaking, it's like, why are you not using this information from the future to prepare for when that happens in that time,
They could have done. They didn't do this, and I think it's okay that they didn't. But one possibility is they could have had somebody be a leader in the future that just wants to save his or her future. Therefore, yes, they should prepare for the attack, but also let's just grab people from the past and help us out now. But that would be a whole different movie with an antagonist, true human and that's a one possible way to solve the issues.
That's true.
But yeah, I don't know if I really like that idea per se.
No, yeah, because the antagonist in this film is this alien species, the white spikes. Yeah. Like they're the sole enemy. Like it's the first time it seems like that the world is united because they are facing extinction from one enemy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and again, that might just be me nitpicking because again, the movie's got to happen. Of course, the movie's got to happen. They're gonna jump back and forth and stuff, and I'm sure I can convince myself that they were making preparations like this for the future,
Right.
in the present time, and confusing myself already with talking about past and present and future.
Right. It's interesting though too that they find out somehow that there's a death certificate for him. They know he's gonna die within 7 years, so he gets elevated to a more risky position.
He gets drafted.
He gets drafted, and when he's drafted, they find out
status, I think.
active status,
Something like that.
So they go in there, and that's great where he has an opportunity to like the way they force a conflict. Like he has these jump bands that are just put onto your arm, and you can't get them off unless black market somebody gets off. So he goes to his dad.
Yeah.
Who he hates. He hates his dad. His dad had abandoned him. And his dad could take it off, but he's so mad at his dad and the fact that he's a soldier, he doesn't have it removed. And I think in terms of character design, you want him to be a soldier. You don't want him to find out how to fight in the worst scenario ever. And of course, someone who's been a soldier, like, they know they've signed up to fight before, so it makes sense for him to say, I'm just gonna do it. That's my job. I'm gonna do it. That's just what needs to be done.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree, and I like the interaction that we see with him and his dad because again, like we find out, his dad abandoned him, stuff like that. But something that I noticed, and this comes back to play later in the movie, is that like when he comes to his dad for help, he thinks his dad never helps him and stuff like that. But when he asks, his dad doesn't argue. His dad doesn't say, get out of here and stuff like that. It's not a battle. His dad is like ready and willing to help him and wants to help him, and he walks away.
Well, and part of that too is the great character the dad is. He's a snarky,
True.
sarcastic, kind of bitter old man who is willing to help,
Yeah, true.
but he's not like, oh yeah, champ, I'll help you out. He's, making fun of him and teasing him and stuff
That's
like
true.
that.
It's a good banter back and forth, but I just think that's an interesting thing to note because again, it does come back into play kind of later in the movie.
So one thing that I thought was really interesting, a theme, and I'm going to jump around here in the movie a little bit, is there's a couple things that I want to talk about. And one of them is that this movie has such an incredible time element. So in storytelling, time equals tension. And whenever you can shorten down the time limit, it increases the stakes. And so what's interesting is as we watch this, there's so many times in this movie where there's a time limit, which should be enough. Right? Hey, you're going to go to basic training for 3 days and then you're going to be deployed. Or this has to happen and then this. And what happens is it's so often subverted. Like they didn't get to, they go to basic training and, we've got to go now. So they didn't get fully trained. Later on in the movie, these aliens, every 7 days, they slumber. They go to sleep. They call it the Sabbath.
Yep.
And then in the end, they think they have the Sabbath day. The humans think they have the Sabbath day to prepare on killing these aliens. But the aliens decide, we're not taking the Sabbath today. We're coming at you now.
Right. Well, that was because of the queen, the female that they had and stuff. And it's like they're not going to rest until they get her back. So no, absolutely.
And so what a great story design from the writer to not only put a time limit on it that's unreasonable, but then to make that unreasonable time limit, even shorter. Like, you're in it now.
Right.
So that was a good call.
Yeah, and again, it's just throwing them into the thick of things when they don't know. And another thing that I enjoy too is that they don't show them what these things look like beforehand. And they get there, and it's like you see like a whisper or something like that in the distance, and you see these creatures like kill like a platoon of soldiers like they're nothing, and then rip them apart. And it's like, how terrifying would that be? And that's your introduction to, hey, you're not fully trained yet, and that's what you're fighting down there. And you watch it from a distance just completely annihilate people.
Right. That was crazy. There's a lot of tension in this movie, and I think that they really developed it well, especially with such a crazy, frenetic alien that is so defensible. It's highly, it's got armor, it's got teeth, it shoots spikes, it has tentacles.
Yeah, that's something that I really appreciated about these aliens. It's like, the aliens in Alien and other ones like that, it's like, they have claws, they have fangs, they have stuff like that. It's like they have to get close to you to kill them. It's like these ones have claws and fangs, but then they can also shoot from a distance. And it's like that's such a fun little element because it's like they have a ranged attack. They can, rip you apart, but they can also just shoot you and kill you from a distance. And that was something that I haven't really seen in an Alien style movie. And I thought that was really, really cool. And another thing that I want to talk about too was the reveal, like the first time we actually see one of these white spikes, like in person, like in the flesh, up close. It was such a great reveal because so often movies like to do jump scares where like it gets quiet, things get dark and all of a sudden, the alien creature or whatever jumps out of nowhere, and everything's loud. You're like, oh my gosh, there it is.
And it's like a forced scare through sound and imagery.
Right, but the way they did it in this one was so great because they're walking down these stairs, everything's super duper quiet, and then they look up, and first you see this little thing kind of moving, this little tentacle, and then it gets closer, and then like the light's kind of going down this tentacle, and then you see the side of this body, and then the side of the face, until finally you see it fully standing there. And it was all slow. It's like
and from a distance,
and like kind of getting closer and filling up the frame. And to me, that is such a better reveal than just trying to, like jump scare.
Yeah.
Because again, you get to see every aspect of this creature of like, oh my gosh, this is like a killing machine.
Yeah, and that's the element of you have in these type of situations, you have two choices. You have suspense or you have surprise. And in what you were saying a minute ago, a lot of horror movies and action movies, they go with surprise to get the effect of now you're scared, but they do the surprise with the sound and the lights and the in your face. But another way to go is suspense, and so just revealing it slowly, it can be more satisfactory for sure.
Yeah. No, I love that reveal so much. And again, it just shows off the creature without trying to, make jump out of your seat, and you get the full fear. Because again, it was also just kind of sitting there watching him,
Yeah.
which that's so creepy.
Yeah, and then we had the time element, and we're still in the opening here, but we had the time element where planes are coming in to bomb the area. They're trying to escape, so we got the time element, and then we have these things coming out. And it was great when the rescue Humvees show up. It was like, yes, victory, and these white space come out and just demolish
Like they're nothing.
like their toys. They're like, oh no! So great use of suspense there.
Absolutely. Just a giant horde of white spikes chase him as well that you see, everything's closing in on him. Which brings me to another thing of how the heck did they get out of there?
Yeah, but that's a little bit of movie magic
100%.
where it's like we don't need to show you everything. We'll just kind of move the story along and have them wake up in a hospital bed. Okay, well, I guess that didn't need to be shown or explained, but maybe a sentence. Yeah, we good thing we, don't ever say it this way, but like, good thing you found the other pickup spot or something. I mean, there just could be a sentence of dialogue that maybe just tied it together, because it was a little bit of,
Our choppers got to you just in time. There's another wave coming in. You would have been completely demolished if we hadn't gotten you out there. I don't know. Something like that.
yeah, it was a little cliche to have a really tense moment, and then it's like they don't know how to end it, so we're just gonna move them forward and just pretend like everything worked out, little without saying anything. So, constructive I had was, I love shoot 'em up movies, I really do. But these guys had endless ammunition, and that could add to the tension. You have to change a clip in a gun, and they don't shoot. In movies, you think from movies, if you've never shot a gun, you think that boy oh boy, one magazine in a machine gun's gonna last all day, and the reality is, it's over pretty quick. If you pull down that trigger, it doesn't last long. And
No, about 15, 20 seconds maybe.
oh no, less than that even.
No, let's not.
That's
even
right
short.
Yeah, that's why I did the short bursts. It's like, you fire short bursts, and these guys are just.
You're running down the stairs, full auto,
no.
switching out clips.
So in terms of storytelling and action, okay, that's not a huge cinema sin.
Right.
We can do that, but it could add to the tension if we're constantly trying to change out clips and running out of clips. And
Yeah, it's like
that's a whole
you're
nother.
dwindling ammo as these creatures are gaining on you. Like, oh no, what do we do now?
Yeah, and I think that could have added some more tension for sure.
No, I agree as well. That would have been a really, really fun way to do that. So it was cool because they set up this relationship where after, they get saved from Miami, he meets his daughter in the future, and she's all grown up and she's kind of running the show.
She's a colonel.
Yep, she's a colonel and like the lead scientist and stuff like that. And something that you pointed out, which you can talk more about, is like, he went from seeing her as a kid to now she's all grown up. But then she talks about how the last time she saw him.
So Miri Forrester, his daughter, who's now Colonel Forrester in the future, says the last time she saw him was on his deathbed, right? And she had been abandoned by him, apparently. We come to find out that this family guy abandoned his wife and daughter and didn't see them, and that she saw the last time she saw him, he breathed his last breath. And so there's this so what's interesting, it's a really great storytelling, because Dan, the main character, Dan, he was abandoned by his father, who was in the military, right?
Yep.
His father was in the military. His father abandoned him.
And his mom.
And his mom. And so now it turns out, and of course he didn't want to do the cycle, but it's all a cycle of abandonment. Now he learns that he abandoned his family, and he's, the last time she saw him, and so she doesn't really like him a whole lot, and their relationship grows over the short course of time, which is great. It was a great little arc.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is that she says the last time she saw him, he breathed his last breath, and then in the end, the last time he sees her, she dies. She breathes her last breath, which was a great circle of that whole motif. And then he goes to see her again when she was younger. If this sounds confusing, if you watch the movie, you know what we're talking about.
Right, yeah, because she talks about how seeing him is like seeing a ghost. Because she saw him die, and he sees her die, and then he goes back and sees her as like an 8 or 9-year-old, his daughter. And it's like the way he sees it, you can tell it's like he's seen a ghost, and it's really like played up very, very well.
It's a really well-crafted story design in that regard of the abandonment, seeing somebody after they die, and then seeing them again, and I thought that worked out really well.
Yeah, 100%. So then, yeah, I guess jumping around here, something that I did think was a little odd, a little strange, is we find out Murray, his daughter, is like the lead scientist, and she's trying to study the white spikes to find out how to kill them with a toxin. And they need this female because the females metabolize it different than the males. So they're trying to capture one that they have stuck in a hole. And so she's there with Dan, and they're in a helicopter. And then her guys down below need help. She decides to go down in there to help get this thing. And my thinking is, your colonel and lead scientist, the only person who really has knowledge on these things and has been studying it, and is the only one left alive who's been studying it, would not go down and put themselves in a situation where they could easily be killed by this thing to try to capture it. But yet she does.
Yeah, that's a non-tactical move for sure. It's an emotional move, which, story, I guess. But I agree with you. It's like, she didn't need to go down in there. And in the end, it really didn't matter. It could have been somebody else doing it. But I suppose they were trying to force her character into that realm. And then, of course, Dan's character down in there to save her. But that's a valid point. Is like, you have a team to do this stuff. And that seemed like it was unnecessary.
Yeah, for me, I think the reason they did that was, again, to get them on the ground, to get them into this spot where, okay, they got the female out, but now they're getting swarmed by all these males and they need to escape. And then leads to them having this heart-to-heart later and stuff like that. But I think there's a better way to get it. Like, again, you got to make it so, like, there's no one else alive or available. Like, they're all trying to keep people, keep the males at bay while they get the female. Like, there's literally no one else who could go in. She has to, like, again, cut off all exits. Don't make it like, I'm going in there because they need help, even though there's like 10 guys down there pulling on the ropes. It's like, okay, what if a few of them got killed or something like that? Like, just come up with a better reason that she needs to go down there.
Exactly. And the fact that it's Dan's story, her dad's story, it would make sense and he's a former soldier, and he's already defeated some of these white spikes. It would make more sense that she would send him, or that he would go down there and take care of it. And then we could follow his, because that'd still be another main character involved in the story, involved in the action. It totally would make sense that he would do it. Plus, he's like the size of a linebacker,
Yes.
and so it would make sense. He would send this trained soldier down in there to, a big, strong guy to do this. And that would have been no hitch in the story, because we would have followed his adventures in there, and then she could have done something to help get him out. But she wouldn't be going in there to do that and then leave back behind this other very capable soldier who would do it.
Because, again, like, she's the one who's going to discover the cure, like the toxin that's going to kill him all. It's like, she needs to survive. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing there.
Yeah.
So, but again,
That's a good point.
And something that they play up later, which could have added great conflict and tension here, is if he jumped down there. We find out, she's trying to keep him alive because she needs him to take this toxin back to the past, so he has to survive. But he doesn't know that until like the very end when they get the toxin made. And so it's like, what if he hears that they need help, and before she can jump into action, he jumps down there first.
Right.
And then she goes after him like, you need to stay alive. He's like, why? I'm here to protect you. And then we find out, oh, you need to take, like, I'm trying to create this toxin and I need you to take it back.
Yeah.
You need to stay alive. And now they're both in danger.
That would have been
because he chose to act before asking.
Yeah, and that would have been a really good way to tie that up, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think so too.
It got great where, the daughter sacrifices herself and the father goes back, and then you close off all exits. We talked about this before. The things you want to do is you want to find the path of least resistance for what your character, how your characters can avoid conflict, and then you close off those exits, those easy exits, and force them to face the bull or the conflict. And so it was nice that after, you notice this too, like Miri is falling with the female, and all these males come underneath and climb on top of each other to catch the female, and then Dan lets her go. I didn't like the fact that he jumped after her because that was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You are clearly the hope of all mankind. She's clearly gonna die. It's all so very, very clear. There's no escape. And then he seems to jump after her. Like, what's the plan there, pal? Are you gonna catch her and then fall in with the monsters too?
Yeah.
That to me was overly dramatic and unnecessary.
Yeah, that was a little odd
to
me as well.
But it was really great that they closed off the exits, that when he gets back, the transporting tower,
the jump link
gets wrecked. You can't go back. That's great, simple thing like that.
Yeah.
And also, we talked about, like, a lot of times science fiction tries to be too sciencey.
Yeah.
And their whole idea of time travel was, there's a link in the future and a link in the past, and they're traveling together
through time.
And somebody asked the little kid question, like, well, why can't you just
jump back earlier?
Is not the war. And so they solved that little kid question by saying, this thing barely works.
Right.
And that's so much better, because in science fiction movies, they usually go into all this fake science crap of how something is going to work, and then you could simply say, well, that doesn't make any sense. And this one, it's a great out by saying, and this barely works. What a great answer to that story problem.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me a lot of like Looper. That is such a great time travel thing where it's just a super simple explanation of how it works. Mm-hmm. They don't go into the science of it, like you said. It's just like, this is how it works. This is why we can't go there. Moving on. Okay. And everyone can agree with it. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Let's keep going because we don't need to hang up on this. Something I did like too at the end, to me, I think that Murray is like the only person who seems to grasp, or at least fully understands, that future isn't going to be saved.
The future she's in.
Yeah, the future she's in is not going to make it, that it's going to end. And so the whole point of her making the toxin is so that Dan can bring it back to his present time and stop the war from ever happening. And that's something that I feel like, again, it's like, he wants to send toxin back in to save the future, and they're like, we can't do that. And then it seems to me like they're not going to make the toxin, period. And it's like, well, wait, you still gotta, like, you still have aliens coming. Like, they're gonna show up. They're gonna show up. Like, start making that stuff and get prepared. And to me, it kind of felt occasionally like they didn't think about that coming up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I like how she thought about that, and she knew it's like, okay, you need to stop it from ever happening. You're not going to save me. You're not going to save us.
Yeah, and that's great too, because most Hollywood, and technically she did live, but a lot of Hollywood movies are like, we can't let anyone die because people are going to get mad. You know what? Audiences don't get mad, and if they do, tap into some emotion. It's okay for a character to die.
It's more impactful.
And not find out, oh, they survived. Like, how many times have we seen that in a movie? And it's
Fast and Furious.
And it just kills the emotion. It just and you think it's like it's emotional manipulation.
Right. Well, it's the whole idea of you take the stakes out of it because you're like,
Yeah.
you see somebody die, it's like, well, are they actually dead? Like I don't feel like they're really in much danger because we saw them, maybe they're alive later or something. It's like it takes out like the stakes of, okay, they're about to die. Well, if they can't actually die because of Hollywood rules or whatever, then
Yeah.
we know that they're gonna make it through.
Well, that's the thing. Even our last show we did, was it Deadpool Wolverine was our last one, or a few
That was a few episodes.
episodes back. Logan was a great love letter about the ending of Logan, and then they bring him back,
Yeah.
and it's like, does anyone just die ever in these movies? So it is a bit contract. But anyways, that leads us into the Act 3, which is a whole new storyline
Yes.
of, all right, we're going to go on this adventure to Russian Arctic to find a crashed alien
ship.
spaceship.
Yeah.
That was a little, let's move along with the story. So, we just happen to have an airplane that can fly into Russian airspace
That was from his dad.
from his dad, and his dad was a pilot, a mechanic, and a pilot and a plane mechanic, which is great. Story features, that's his strength, so we use his strength to move him forward. And then somehow they got snowmobiles. Somehow they've got, like 900 pounds of C4 with them. Somehow they got a giant saw. So it gets a little convoluted. And if they have all this C4, like, why do they have to go in with the toxin?
So yeah, that was something that bothered me, was that the whole like first two acts of the movie is or at least the second act is they're trying to make this toxin that kills these creatures. It's like it kills the males and the females so we can defeat them. They make the toxin. They go to use it. They use it on like 5.
5 of them, yeah.
And they it disintegrates and it works. But then killing those 5 with the toxin wakes up all these other ones, and then they don't really get to use the toxin again except for on like the final one.
Yeah.
And they end up blowing up and shooting all the rest of the white spikes that haven't woken up. And it kind of made the whole journey of Act 2 pointless.
It did.
In the end, it just, to me, I felt bad. I was like, they spent all that time and now they're not even really gonna use it much
Yeah.
at all.
And I get it. I see, you have an action movie and just injecting sleeping creatures with poison and they just die it's pretty anticlimactic for sure. They could have solved that by getting through the poison or getting through the toxin, but when they look into the ship, there's way more aliens than there's toxin, and then they all get woken up. But they used it. But let's just say, for the sake of for the love of Acts 2,
Yeah.
let's use all the toxin and then be like, oh crap, we're out of toxin, and then these things
This
start
ship
waking
is
up.
really big.
As opposed to just having carts and carts of toxin, injecting it into 3 of them or 5 or 7 or whatever it was, and then saying, well, let's nuke, basically nuke it from sight is essentially, it's like, let's just blow the whole thing up. It's like, okay, well, I guess we'll do that then.
Yeah. Okay, so something too that I really, really liked, and I remember the first time we watched this movie, we were watching it and we're getting towards, like, they're in Russia, they find this ship. You straight up said, like, I've always wondered and thought it'd be really cool if, like, one of these alien movies wasn't, like, the aliens were never supposed to be there. Like, it was an accident, like, crash. And then about 2 minutes later in the movie, they make it into the ship, and they're like, they didn't mean to come here. This isn't a landing site. This is a crash site. Like,
And these aren't the actual aliens. These are their...
yeah, these are, like, pilots and stuff. Like, they didn't mean to land here. Like, Earth probably wasn't their target. And straight up, it's like, do what you said. And I really like that because, again, it's so overplayed nowadays of, like, alien species and a thing to wipe out people like they're supposed to be there. It's like, what if it was just a straight up accident?
What if it was an accident? Yeah. It's like, how many movies do we have to... And we love science fiction. I mean, that's great.
That's my bread and butter.
It
That's
is.
what I write.
Yeah, so you're right. And it does get played out where it's like Earth is being taken over for its resources. But it's so much better. It's like, hey, these aliens were on their way to take over some other planet, and they brought some some really nasty pets with them.
Yeah.
The aliens themselves aren't the ones doing it. It's their nasty cleanup crew.
Yeah.
That
They're planet clearing
planet-clearing
organisms. Yeah.
organisms. And so that was great. So that was like, wow,
Loved it. Yeah.
right on.
Like this was never supposed to happen in the first
Never
place,
supposed to happen.
which is really, really cool. Mm-hmm. But then they destroy it.
But then they destroy it.
Gigantic thing with a little bit of C4.
Oh, like so much C4. And yeah, well, not only that, but they had C4 and they planted all the C4 around the site, and they blew the site so they could walk into the spaceship nice and handy dandy, which didn't wake up the spikes, the white spikes. And then they go in and they do the just
Toxin thing.
manual toxin thing, and then they end up blowing up the whole thing. And
Yeah, we thought they used up all their C4 trying to like uncover the
Yeah.
crash, and then in the end they set more C4, but it only looked like they had a couple bricks left. They blow the C4, and then he's running away, and like basically like this,
Oh, yeah.
megaton nuclear bomb seems to go off and
Giant
blows up.
fireball.
So like the ship that we find out is like this massive ship filled with hundreds of thousands of these white spikes, and they look and you just see this hallway just going and going and going. It looks endless, and then for some reason this little bit of C4 seems to cause a chain reaction to blow off the entire ship.
yeah.
A little ridiculous,
A little bit.
but
over the
again,
top.
cinematic. It looked it was a cool explosion.
It looked good. And then the final fight with the female and him bonding with his dad. They're both soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
They both have reconnected. I think that worked out well, and I love the beats. It's always tricky coming up with good beats for your story and constantly having this conflict, change. But they had a lot of beats in that fight. He had took one of the spikes and it bit through the spike, and
Yeah.
they kind of kept it going, which is good. I'm not a fan of the overused falls off the edge of a cliff. Is it gone? Yes, it is. No, it's not. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I get the cliff thing, but again, cliffs are, I don't know, they're kind of convoluted, and they're an easy fix to create some more tension.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen a fair amount of those. And
Well, something that I hadn't seen before, which I really liked in that final fight, was he sticks this thing in the arm with the toxin.
yeah.
And it's like, it's working, and you see its arms like slowly going. He's like, yes, die. And then all of a sudden, it takes its infected arm and it bites it off. And that to me was like one of the coolest beats of tension.
Yes.
Like you think he's got it, like he's stabbing it with a toxin, it's gonna die, and then it rips its own arm off to stop the toxin from killing it, and now they have to continue fighting.
That was a brilliant
It was
beat
such
there.
a good moment.
'Cause
And I had never seen that before.
Yeah, I don't think I've caught that. And if it's happened in other movies, then, props to the writer. But that was really great when somebody, an infection is going to kill this thing, and then, it's going to lop its arm off and not get infected. And then
Right.
you're just kind of screwed. So that was really great.
Oh, it was awesome. So
Yeah. But then we both agreed the ending. So the very, very ending. Oh, groan. We have a voiceover of Dan telling us about how it all comes together and how he's never going to leave his family. And there was no
change forever.
Yeah, and so there's a number of movies that have these moments of voiceover. Like they don't voiceover through the, disperse it through the whole film,
Yeah.
which is a technique and a style, like Christmas Story, right? But they'll just throw it in at the very beginning, or they'll just throw it at the very end, and it's out of the blue, and it was so unnecessary. It's like show don't tell. Like the whole idea of him not leaving his family, he could have just hugged his daughter and his wife and say, "I'm never leaving you," and that would have been his character telling us that, not him looking at his daughter and describing to the audience how I'll never leave my family. Oh gosh, just don't do that. That was just hit delete on that voiceover.
It's just cheesy.
It's cheesy and it's unnecessary. Like, who's gonna leave? What audience? Like, if he would have just said that he's never leaving his family, what audience person would have left going, "I wonder if he's gonna leave his family?" They wouldn't have done that.
No.
So bad call. $100 says that wasn't the writer's choice. $100 says there's some executive that says you gotta put something in the other so the people will know that he's not gonna leave his family. And the writer's like, fine. So I'm calling shenanigans on the producers for doing this crap. And I'm saying it's not the writer, because if it was the writer, he would have had voiceovers throughout.
Probably.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, and you don't do voiceovers very often. I don't write voices very often. But if it's a style, you do it throughout. Or at least you bookend it. Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
you have
you
the
open
beginning.
and then you bookend it.
Yeah, you bookend it. You put a voiceover at the beginning. You put a voiceover at the end, which I am not for voiceovers unless it's a Christmas story. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, it's
that's telling the audience.
it's a cheap trope to, like, I don't know how to show this, so I'm just gonna tell them, you know, in the disembodied voice, you know, as things are happening. It's like, that's just figure out a better way to show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's not hard.
No, it's not.
Hug your kid, hug your wife, saying, I'm never leaving you.
The end.
Done. Story's over, no voiceover, we're good to go.
Yeah.
That, for us, folks, is our analysis of the Tomorrow War.
Yeah. Again, absolutely love this film. Does have some issues towards the end, but we really, really enjoy it.
It's cool. Yeah, it's an enjoyable watch, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Alex, what do you think? Can you give us your pitch, please?
Absolutely. So
And I'll help you out with this, too.
yeah, absolutely. So we like this movie enough. I surely like this movie enough to want to write a sequel. And so that's what we're going to try to do right here, right now. Probably call it The Tomorrow War Today. I don't know. Maybe cheesy title.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. All right. So this starts off 10 years after the events of the Tomorrow War. Dan Forster is still teaching at high school, doing high school biology, but he's also helping out the government kind of with White Spike's defense. They know now that aliens do exist in this universe, and so the potential is we need to prepare in case this happens again. So he's pretty happy, you know, with his wife, Emmy, and he's trying to be there for Murray, but Murray is now about 17, 18 years old,
Okay.
is what I figured, and she's getting ready to go off to college, and she's kind of become, you know, a teenager, so she's trying to separate from her dad, and so their relationship has become pretty strained despite all Dan's efforts to stay close to her, and he fears that he might lose her if things continue on this path.
The world has gone back to a semblance of normal. New technology from the Tomorrow War has immensely advanced Earth's current technology. Scientists on Earth believe they can recreate the jump link that the future Earth created, and they are fully prepared with toxins to battle off any other white spikes that might appear, but they aren't prepared for everything.
So Dan is invited to the testing of this new jump link, and they have hopes of reestablishing a connection to the future Earth. It will be, of course, different since they stopped the future war from happening, but they thought a communication between the future would be kind of cool and might help them advance technology further. And so the portal opened successfully, and to the surprise of everyone, somebody actually appears through it. There's this lone soldier all battered up and bleeding, and he kind of falls into this complex, says they're coming, and then he takes his last breath. And moments later, a large amount of life forces can be seen coming through the portal, and white spikes appear.
They use the toxin to kill the different waves, holding them at bay, but Dan notices two new aliens appear. They aren't white spikes, but they look a lot like the aliens from the crash site that carried the original white spikes. These aliens are looking for something or someone. They notice Dan, and they start coming after him. The rest of the complex is trying to shut down the portal, but they seem to have lost control of the system. Dan escapes the lab, heading home, but the aliens pursue him.
Yeah, so white spikes start to break through the defenses, and they're following Dan along with the two aliens that kind of brought these white spikes. And, you know, panic is starting to spread through the area. Soon the military is called in, and this big battle happens with the number of white spikes just being a little overwhelming. Dan's able to get back to his family, to his home, and they're trying to escape. But then those two aliens that found Dan in the first place catch up to him, and they take Murray. And Dan and Emmy try to follow them, and they follow them back to the portal. But before they can stop them and get Murray back, the aliens go into the portal and they close it behind him. And like the government's able to kill the rest of the white spikes, but Murray's gone, and now they have no more control over their portal.
So Dan and Emmy try to get the portal back online, but no one can get it to work. They're told that it's over and that they need to prepare. But Dan isn't ready to go down without a fight. He promises Emmy that he will get their daughter back and find out why those aliens wanted her. Then he goes to his dad and he tells his dad the situation and that they need to figure out how to fix the portal. Luckily, his dad has some scientist friends who might be able to help them out. They assemble a small team and they make their way to a secret lab, which has developed its own jump link just on a much smaller scale. Dan and his dad and their team make the jump to the future, armed with guns and toxin.
So this would kind of be the beginning of Act 2 here. They arrive in the future and all hell's kind of broken loose. They see countless alien ships floating in the sky, and there's white spikes just, back everywhere. They find people fighting back, but it's a losing battle. And so Dan and his group kind of make their way into this war zone, trying to help out wherever they can. They're able to get in contact with an operating base, and they get a little bit of the situation told to them. Aliens have the globe under attack. The Murray and Dan of the future were both killed in the initial attack, trying to cut off the whole idea of them seeing their doppelgangers in the future.
Nice.
And so Dan asks if the commander knows where his Murray might be, but that is kind of still a mystery. They are told that the white spikes aren't the only aliens out there. There's something bigger and tougher that's been coming through, not in as great a numbers as the white spikes, but it's far deadlier and smarter. Most of the world has been destroyed, but there is a small fortified area that the humans do still control, and they're offered a ride if they can get to the pickup location.
Dan and his team make their way through the city, fighting off white spikes and losing a lot of their team. They are nearly to the pickup zone when they finally encounter this new alien. It is 4 times the size of white spikes, covered in very tough outer skin. They can't find any major weaknesses. They fight the massive alien who toys with them, killing them off slowly. They try the toxin on it, but it doesn't have any effect. Finally, Dan manages to get several grenades into the alien's mouth. It blows up, giving the remaining team time to get to the chopper. But as they head out, the alien is slowly regenerating.
Yeah, wow. So they make it to the fortified location where they learn about the situation. The white spikes are attacking everything and anything, but the new aliens, the bigger ones, have been strategically taking out important things like utilities, operations, all that around the globe. They say that the aliens arrived 2 years earlier, and they were able to talk at first with the aliens that were in charge. And they said that they were in search of one of their lost ships, the ship that they blew up in the first movie. And then when the aliens discovered that that ship was destroyed, they began their attack. They hacked into Earth's databases, and they discovered that Murray had been able to develop white spike DNA from the toxins that she had previously created. And odds were they wanted her to create more white spikes for them, and then they would leave. And so she offered to go willingly to get them to leave Earth, by offering to try to create more white spikes for them. But not long after that, they kind of continued on with their attack, and they unleashed these new aliens, and Murray wasn't seen again. Dan asked where she was taken, and they find out that they have a lead ship, which is where Murray originally went.
Dan and his dad make a plan to break into that ship, save Murray, and get out. They are joined by the last remnants of humanity, and a huge invasion of the alien ship takes place. They battle white spikes and the new aliens, making it into the ship. Dan finds Murray, who has been used by the aliens to create more white spikes. Dan and Murray are able to make it out of the ship, but they are being pursued by countless white spikes. Dan's dad decides to buy them some time. He sacrifices himself, blowing up the ship after Dan and Murray escape. They are able to jump back to their time, destroying the portal so nothing can come through.
Yeah, and so after that, Dan tells the government that they need to prepare for war with these aliens who are coming to collect their lost ship. Murray says that the aliens did something in her mind, and now she knows how to make white spikes, and that she could make them for humans to defend against the aliens. Dan isn't happy about that at all, doesn't want her to do that because he knows the danger of the white spikes, but the government, of course, kind of loves that idea. And so they take her to start production of white spikes for humans to battle the coming aliens and prepare for war. And that would be the end of this one.
And that would lead us into a third installment,
Yeah, why not?
right? Keep it
Setup
going.
after setup. I like this one a lot, and I think it could easily be a trilogy.
Yeah. So props to Alex. This is all his. This is all his pitch. Well done. I like it quite a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris Pratt, if you're watching, hopefully, and you want to make the Tomorrow War Part 2, give me a call. I would love to write that one. That would be a lot of fun to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of Pitch Please. We really enjoyed talking about this movie, and we hope that you enjoyed listening. Just remember, everything we talked about is just our thoughts. We're not saying that we're right or that we're wrong. This is just how we would have done things, how we would have fixed things that we found. And, this is the sequel that we would enjoy making and love to see.
Absolutely. So we appreciate your time. Remember to check us out on Spotify or on YouTube if you're on one or the other. Share this and like it. Share it with your friends, your filmmaking friends, your storytelling friends, people who love movies. And hopefully you all find it very entertaining.
Yeah. And we are also on Instagram, social media. So make sure to give us a follow, give us a like, share this stuff with anyone that you would know who would enjoy it. And yeah.
So join us next week for our next episode of Pitch Please.